Hello everyone, welcome to one of my videos. Today we're going to talk about the F-104 Starfighter in use by the Italian Air Force. This plane dominated the skies in Western Europe during the late 50s up to the early 2000s, at least with the Italian Air Force. Now, without further ado, let's go straight into the past of like 7 years and let's see the origins of this fighter. The first F-104 was produced for the US Air Force for the Korean War and was born to be a pure interceptor. But later, some features were added to make it usable as a fighter bomber and to better fit it for dogfighting. After the US Air Force lost interest in the F-104, Lockheed collaborated with German manufacturers like Dornier and Heineken to create the F-104G. G stands for Germany. Post collaboration with the Luftwaffe, Lockheed partnered with Fiat Aviazione, now Aero Italia, to make the Italian F-104G, which took off for the first time on the 3rd of March 1962, entering service in 1969 after the first F-104G was delivered in 1966. While operating the F-104G, Italian Air Force expressed its volunteer to continue the project, so Lockheed and Aeritalia collaborated to create the first F-104S, also known as Lo Spillone by the pilots, specially designed for Italy, who took off from Turin Caselle on the 30th of December 1968 for the first time. These are some of the F-104 characteristics and of course non-classified. The F-104, as you can notice by the picture, has very small wings, which were caused by the fact that this plane had to fly extremely fast, so the drag was reduced as much as possible. But small wings means a large turning radius, which gives the F-104 a really big disadvantage in dogfights. Even though it cannot turn, it has an outstanding engine power, capable to reach speeds of Mach 2.2. Even though I wrote Mach 2.0. The max speed can normally be registered is Mach 2, but some cases it can also reach 2.2. The F-104S added very new technologies for the time, like the radar-guided AIM-7 Sparrow missiles and the AIM-9J infrared missiles, which were a revolutionary trait of the time. The G-force limit of the F-104S was 7.33 G in a clean configuration, which means no drop weapons. The max speed, as I said, is Mach 2.0, about 2.0, or 2,470 kilometers per hour, or about, let me do calculations, about 1,500-ish miles per hour. The max height that it could reach was 11,000 meters or 11 kilometers or 33,000 feet. It had 9 sub-wing pods for bombs, missiles, and fuel tanks. The main versions were the F-104S, the F-104S ASA, and the F-104S ASA M. So the two versions that I just talked about, the ASA and ASA M, were the improved variants of the F-104S. The F-104S ASA, which ASA stands for Aggiornamento Sistemi d'Arma or Weapon System Update, introduced the S-Spide missiles, which were a semi-radar guided missile, and the AIM-9L missiles, which were maybe the most used infrared missile of the time. It had an updated avionics, countermeasures, and a new radar. Then there's the ASA M, which M stands for Modificato, which means modified, in which they had more updated avionics and some new structural remodeling, especially in the engine. But in the end, who used the F-104S? Italy, as being the main user of this, which used all three variants of the F-104S, while also Turkey operated the F-104S, but only the F-104S without the ASA and ASA-M versions. Now, let's talk about some fun facts of this plane. The F-104 couldn't stall because of two features called APC and shaker and kicker, which were very correlated. The APC was an indicator in the cabin that signalized the angle of attack AOA from a scale 0 to 5. If it went close to 4.5, the shaker of the shaker and kicker enter in action, shaking very strongly the clutch. If the pilot needed to go into 5, the system gave up a slap on the nose of the aircraft, leveling it. You might have heard also of the F-104 as the flying coffin or widowmaker, but that's mainly because of two reasons. First, the pilots were never always trained in their homeland, so like they were trained in other countries, and that made it difficult for the pilot to learn in their own homeland how to fly the aircraft. And also, the second reason was that the earlier pilots came from the F-86K and F-86E, which were two completely different aircraft, and they flew with those sensations. When the generation of pilots who flew the F-104 only, we had no experience with the other aircraft, and flew as the manual said, it became an extremely reliable aircraft with almost no incidents. When the flaps were in land configuration on the F-104, the wood detaching the superior fluid fillet, which is a hydraulic system that controls the ailerons, the system called BLC expels through tiny holes warm air from the engine, creating a sort of a pillow. If you want to understand more, check the image on the side. The seats in the F-104 cockpit are almost 90 degrees vertical, so most pilots that flew now have neck problems because of this seat. The almost 90-degree vertical seat meant that if you do a high G maneuver, you'd feel all the G's, like 5G maneuver, you feel 5 Gs, 6 maneuver, 6 Gs, and so on. Unlike a modern aircraft, which has a reclined seat, which splits the G forces into two vectors of minor power. So, like if you pull 9 Gs, you feel 5, and if you pull like 7, you feel 4, etc. So this was also one of the problems of the F-104. But thanks for watching. This was the video. Also, if you want to check the sources, these are the sources on screen. Thank you again for watching to the end, and see you on the next video. Bye!